name's Dwayne Osterland, and this is Addiction in the Mind. And I'm one of the co-founders of Nova's Mindful Life Institute. And what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about mindfulness, and specifically mindfulness when it comes to dealing with issues of addiction, whether it's a process addiction or a substance problem. We're going to look at how mindfulness can help you cope. And so today I have a guest with me. His name is Arsen Muradyan. And one of his specialties is using mindfulness with clients who are struggling with addictive issues. So I'll let him introduce himself and start talking.
Yeah. So my name is Arsen Muradyan. I am a marriage and family therapist intern, and I work with addiction. I run groups and individual. I do some recovery coaching, and I use a lot of mindfulness in my individual sessions, as well as usually how I begin a lot of my groups is we do like a mindfulness meditation. And so, I've looked at a lot of the research and been able to apply a lot of the research in when I do therapy. So, I really enjoy mindfulness. It's really...
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess what I would like to know is for someone who's just starting out, and maybe someone who's listening and they're struggling with addictive issues and they're struggling with these problems. First off, what is mindfulness, and how would you? It's a term that's being thrown around a lot right now,
Yes.
and you hear it all over. It's all over the internet, and everybody's talking about
Yes.
mindfulness and
Yes.
how great it is, and it's
Yes.
and that it's been with us for 2,000 or 3,000 years. But
Yes.
a lot of people, I think, don't understand what that means. They kind of hear the word, but don't know what it means. So how would you define mindfulness, or what does it mean? Or
No, I think it's a great question, and and you're right. I think it's been thrown around a lot, and I think it depends on who you're asking. But the way that what I've looked at and kind of the research that I've seen, and the what I feel most comfortable with, I would say it composes of I would say two components. I would say the first component, which is the placement of attention on the immediate experience, so being in the moment, where whatever that is, and then being able to sort of look at the moment in a more open and curious sort of way, instead of maybe judging or labeling whatever the experience is, but just being open to wherever you are in that present moment. I would say that would be the way that I would define mindfulness. Yeah.
Right. And so it's being present with whatever your experience is. Mm-hmm. And I think, especially in our culture today, we're in this doing culture where we're like, got to get this done. We're always thinking about the future. We're always thinking about what we have to do next. And a lot of times we're never just what's happening with me right now, and especially as we pull out our cell phones. I think that's exacerbated exacerbated this problem. Absolutely. It's like getting a text, Twitter, a text message, emails, and we're constantly missing what's happening right in front of us. And I think with addiction, I think that's even more difficult. With addiction, we're really looking to get out of what we're feeling and what we're doing. So kind of what you're saying with mindfulness is being present to the moment, whatever it is, even if it's uncomfortable or...
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes. It's I think a lot of the times it's when a lot of the thing that a lot of addicts struggle with is they don't like how they feel, whether they don't like how they feel about themselves or how about their surroundings. And so a lot of times they avoid a lot of their feelings. And so at least beginning with mindfulness is that just being able to sit there and be mindful to the present situation, the present moment, it already helps them sort of begin to process, kind of what's going on. And I think that's true for addiction, but I also think that's true for our society as a whole.
Right. What would be, to help someone understand, like being present in the moment, do you have any kind of an example or a simple example that maybe someone could understand? Like, I don't know, they're having a bad day or they're feeling down, or what would being present, what would someone do if they were being mindful about it, I guess.
Yes, right. So, for example, so somebody say is, you know, their boss yelled at them, you know, and they sit, you know, and then afterwards they're feeling all of these feelings and all of these you know, negative emotions and or whatever just the discomfort that they feel with internally, and you know, then what mindfulness does is then as they sit down and they kind of just, you know, just be present to where they're feeling and kind of look at it in a curious sort of open-minded sort of way, then, you know, what mindfulness does is, you know, well, okay, so I'm frustrated, you know, then you begin to kind of look at, okay, well, where do I feel it? So do I feel it in my chest? Do I feel it in my head? And then what are my thoughts that are going through my mind right now? You know, what am I thinking? Am I thinking, you know, well, I'm this horrible employee, or what a jerk my boss is? I mean, you know, and then as you begin to get more mindful, then it becomes more clear of, you know, what are the things that are going on internally, and then in that way it kind of helps you sort of deal with things in a different way. It sort of helps you be more aware of what's going on. You know, because when we sort of, as you talked about, you know, when we're on our cell phones, we're trying to distract ourselves. We're avoiding a lot of what's going on internally, and those things can actually be important, you know, signals for us,
right,
internally. Yeah,
I kind of have seen it as where if you're using mindfulness, you're changing from a stance of reacting to responding. You know, if you're present, you can pay attention to what information your emotions are telling you, information in the environment, and you can make better choices. So if your boss yells at you, instead of just you get all this anger and you go in and I'm going to tell my boss off, and you yell at him, and then, you know, you don't have a job, you could kind of sit and go, is that really what I need to do? Is that because I'm being present with my emotions? They're not just driving the bus, so to speak. They're not just moving me around.
Yes.
And mindfulness, I think, as you practice it, helps you just sit without necessarily reacting to whatever your impulse is. And if it's with addiction, okay, I'm going to go use a substance or engage in an addictive behavior. I'm just going to sit here and watch that process and just be there. And I think with people who struggle with addiction, having that ability to just watch that impulse and say, okay, wait a minute, this is not the choice I really want to make.
Yes. And I think the research, what you're talking about is the research would support that, which is, you know, that as you sit there, be mindful, you know, you are slowing down the impulse to act, you know, as, you know, because a lot of addicts, you know, they have that impulse and they feel like they have to go act.
Right.
You know, and the research says that as the impulse to act is sort of, there's a sort of a barrier between the impulse to act, and mindfulness can be that barrier, then you're less likely to go and do whatever it is that you feel like in that present moment that you need to absolutely go do.
Right. So it gives you, it kind of puts the brakes on that impulsive action.
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
You can make a better choice.
Yes.
So it slows that process down.
Yes,
so,
yes, it does.
So that's really how mindfulness can help someone who's struggling with addiction. So, you know, okay, we understand it as kind of this being present in the moment. How do you practice that? I mean, you know, it's like we got a lot of things going on in our life, and it's hard to just say, okay, I'm going to sit here and meditate for 5 hours. I mean, that's probably...
and you don't have to do it for 5 hours.
Okay, that's good to know.
You don't have to do it for 5 hours. The research shows that even just a small amount of mindfulness practice can make a big difference.
Okay,
you know, and if just start, you know, a lot of my clients, I tell them, you know, start with 5 minutes and have it be maybe a structured time in your day. That, you know, say the first thing that I get up in the morning, or the first or the last thing that I do when I go to bed, that's, you know, I'm going to be 5 minutes. I'm going to do mindfulness, and you know, and I also don't think mindfulness needs to be reduced to just sitting there meditating. You know, it's just, you know, again, it's sort of being attentive to the present moment. So, for example, going on a walk, or, you know, whatever, looking at the clouds, those things can be used as a way of being mindful in the moment.
Okay. So if someone's watching this video and they say, okay, yeah, I'm struggling with some addictive issues and I'm going to start doing mindfulness. I mean, where might they look? Where I know it's like, okay, go for a walk. Well,
yes.
Yeah, but what might they do, or what could they do, or how could they get started, I guess? Like, what would you describe as like a mindfulness exercise or an example, like a concrete example that a person could use?
Sure. I mean, if you want to get it as basic as, for example, mindfulness can just be, if we're talking about meditation, it could be, 5 minutes sitting down and just paying attention to how you breathe. Just, it just, and you can focus on your nostrils or on your belly or on your chest as it goes in and out, just focusing, that can begin just the practice of mindfulness. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be in a cave, but just basic, just being aware. I think that's and being aware, and then also not being judgmental, saying to yourself, well, I'm not doing this right. I can't meditate. I can't be mindful. Whatever. Just being there in the present moment, and then and just being aware that's mindfulness.
Okay. And you said non-judgmental. One of the things that I've heard as a definition of mindfulness is just non-judgmental awareness of your experience in the present moment. Yes. It's like, here I am. This is what I'm experiencing, and I'm just aware of it, and I'm not going to respond. And the way you can start, what I hear you saying is the way you can start is just start that awareness just on your breath. It's a most of the time, a non-triggering place to just start your awareness. And that, I think also, and I think you can also talk to this too, is that mindfulness is a skill that you learn, you practice. You can't know it intellectually. You have to. It's like learning to play. You can know how to play the piano. Doesn't mean you necessarily can play the piano. Right. You can know how a piano works. You can know how all the notes. But if you don't practice, you'll never be able to play. You could learn how to play the piano and not know how to play it, and not be able to play the piano. And I think mindfulness is the same way. It's a skill that you have to practice and that you have to give attention to. But like what you're saying, it doesn't have to start with these long 45-minute meditations.
Right.
It can start with 5 minutes, like doing a mindful walk. So you go for a walk and you pay attention to your breath. You pay attention to the temperature. Mm-hmm. You pay attention to what maybe you're feeling, what colors are out there, what sounds you hear, just in that very present moment. And you practice that. And I think what the research is showing is that the brain starts to shift as you do it more and more. Yes. You can go to that space faster and faster. So when you're in a very triggering situation, like as an addiction, like all of a sudden you've had a bad day, your boss has yelled at you and you're like, I'm done. Right. I'm going out. I'm going to go engage in my addictive behavior. I'm going to go use a drug. Yes. As you practice mindfulness, you're more aware of being able to just sit and go, wait a minute. What am I feeling? What's going on for me? What choices do I have? And is that...
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a skill. It's not one of those things that you can just know, it's you're not just going to be good at it in, the first time you try it. Right. It's one of those things that, it's going to take some time. But you're right. I mean, it is a practice. And what that means is that, as you practice it, you do get better at it. And the actual practice of mindfulness is just to bring yourself back into the present moment. It's not, there is no, it doesn't have some, the idea is not to be some guru or some, super mindful person where you're living every moment in the present. But the idea is to always bring yourself back. And that's a skill, is bring yourself back into the present moment, because the part that is natural is our brain is going to wander. Our brain is always, it's kind of like salivating. It just does it by itself. Right. And so the part that's the practice and is just to bring yourself back. is just to bring yourself back in the present moment. And so when you're able to do that, then, you know, when a situation that's, you know, triggering or you know, emotionally intense arises, then you have that practice. So in that moment, then, you know, instead of responding as you otherwise would respond, you know, you're going to be mindful. And so you're going to say, okay, you know, well, okay, this is a really triggering situation. So, you know, so you're going to be more present to what's going on, and then you're less likely to act on it. Then you're less likely to act on the impulse, as opposed to, you know, kind of weighing out your options and kind of thinking about it.
Right. Okay. And I think what also one of the points you said in there is that it's normal for our brains to kind of wander and plan and think about the future and think about the past, and that's part of being a human being, and that's normal. But when we're only there, then we may have problems. And practicing being mindful to the present moment, we can be more effective with our decision making.
Yes, absolutely.
We can, if we're mindful, we're not just taking the first impulse and our boss yelled at us, we're going to yell at them back, and then maybe that wasn't the wisest choice that we really wanted to do. And if we had sat down and really thought about it, no, you know what, maybe I'll talk calmer, or maybe this is what I need to do, and have some alternatives out there instead of that. And so with addiction, when we really look at addiction, and I've heard this said before, when people struggle with addiction, and they have the urge to use or act out, that as they practice mindfulness, they call it urge surfing, that they just kind of stay with that urge and they watch it as it rises up in their body, as they feel it, and they allow it to have its kind of course. And if they ride the wave of that feeling, it will usually dissipate, you know, and not that that's always easy to do.
Right.
But, and it takes practice, but the more you practice that mindfulness, the better you're able to do it, you know, and so that, in essence, will change your behavior, or be part of the picture of changing your addictive behavior with all of your other support that you need too.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, I think that, you know,
absolutely. I mean, I think definitely. I mean, just the reduction, you know, just putting that, like I said, putting that space in between the action and the thought and the behavior, you know, for a lot of addicts is, you know, they feel these intense emotions, and they feel like they do have to act on it in that present moment. And by sort of being in the moment and by feeling it, I mean, it doesn't just, you know, help you deal with the emotion, because it you know, a lot of addicts, they like I said, they avoid their emotions, and because they're too powerful, too intense, you know. And so that part of it is also important. But you know, being able to decide on doing something else in their life. Right.
And in a way, addiction is emotional avoidance. I mean, you know, you go to the drug because I don't like the way I'm feeling right now.
Right.
I want to change it. I go to the addictive behavior, or food, or alcohol, or sex, or gambling, because I don't like what I'm feeling in this moment, and this changes how I feel. But if you can be mindful to those feelings, you can work on them. You can take opposite action. You can find other alternatives instead of these destructive patterns that end up destroying your life. So, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's really exciting, and I think what's really exciting is the research that is validating the stance that even though mindfulness has been around for 3,000 years, it's just never been studied, and now with the technology that we have to be able to study the brain in such a way, we're really being able to see that mindfulness changes the brain, and we're beginning to understand that the brain is much more plastic than we thought, meaning that it can change, it can move. Our very thoughts actually change the physical structure of our brain, and that's really exciting stuff. So this is validated. It's not just it's not just made up stuff. You know, go out and breathe. You know, for an hour and you're going to be all better. But there's actually evidence that science that actually is supporting that this can be really beneficial. And I think that's really exciting.
Absolutely.
So what would you say to the person if they just watch this video and they want to get started? What should they do right now?
Well, I'm sure, you know, that if you know, they can get on their computer and just, you know, you just Google mindfulness, mindfulness practices or mindfulness exercises, doing something simple like that, and beginning to, be mindful and just starting to practice, just take 5 minutes and just, start something, start some sort of mindfulness practice and then see how it goes, because it's one of those things that over time you will see a change. There is research saying that it is making a huge difference in a lot of people's lives, and so just start and just see how it feels.
Right. Just go out and do it.
Yeah, just go out and do it. Exactly.
And there are tons of resources out there for this.
Absolutely.
And they're all over. And you can go to like Google, you can go to iTunes, download mindfulness meditations, find the ones that work for you, try them. And what I would encourage people to do is just try the ones that are like 5 minutes. Start with really a short amount of time, because it is actually really difficult.
Yes.
And it can be challenging. You can feel like, oh, I'm not doing this right.
Yes.
And you have to start slow. Yes. You don't need to be doing 45 minutes every day. It's just,
right.
The research is showing a very small amount each day, as long as it's consistent, has an impact. So
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
So, well, I want to thank you for talking with us and being here and being part of this and just sharing your knowledge and everything like that.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is once again Dwayne Osterland with Addiction in the Mind. You can find out more about us by going to novusmindfullife.com. That's novusmindfullife.com. And if you have any comments, please just let us know. Any questions? Thank you.